Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Hello there, ladies and gents. Are you ready to watch? You ready to kick it up a notch? Can you see me peering around the edge of my visual display placeholder? Yeah, I guess I might as well drop all the pretense. It's me, Malcolm Tent, bringing you this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Yes, I've been back home now for almost 10 solid days, and I'm still mildly discombobulated, but I am here, and I am ready to rock the internet airwaves, the ether, whatever y'all want to call it. I am here to do it to you, with you, at you, for you, by you, and because of you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Excuse me very much. Yeah, if you guys tuned in last week, you heard plenty of stories of my recent tour with Profanotica, which was great. Great gigs, great people, great adventure. Because of that one tour with Profanotica, excuse me, I can now say that I have visited 45 out of the 48 contiguous United States in North America. And prior to that, I had never really been west of Indiana that much. And I'd never been to the Pacific Northwest. I'd never seen, Idaho and Iowa and states like that. So I was able to tick off a whole bunch of states from my to-visit list. And was able to add quite a few of them to my have-played list. So that was really cool. The drawbacks being very little in the way of rest. And if you watched last week's episode, you'll know what I'm talking about. Even if the air conditioner hadn't been destroyed prior to us going into the infernal blazing desert heat of Arizona in the height of summertime, even if that had not happened, you're still on a really weird schedule when you're touring. You don't have your own rhythm going. You're on the rhythm of the tour itself. You have to be awake, you have to be asleep, you have to be at certain places when everybody else has to be them. So your entire rhythm is not necessarily what yours would be normally. And so because of that, and the fact that I got mildly sick in El Paso, and because it was impossible to sleep without the air conditioning, I've not had like a regular good schedule of just plain old good regular sleep every night. I have not had that in almost a month and counting. Although I've been home now for 10 days, I've had so much going on that sleep has also been evasive, which leads me to the events of last weekend, the punk rock flea market at the Bethlehem Fairgrounds. Thank you to everybody who came out. It was a fantastic event, lots of fun, tons of people representing punk rock in Connecticut. A lot of great fellow dealers. I met old friends, made new friends, blew some minds, had my mind blown by information that people gave me. It was really, really cool. Of course, I had to be up and awake at 7 o'clock in the morning to get there for load-in, which compounds the fact that I was not able to get much sleep in my regular schedule. I'm usually up until 3 or 4 a.m. every day, working, doing mail order, updating my websites, updating the Discogs and the eBay and the Bandcamp and all that. And I like to sleep until sometimes as late as 2 p.m. That's just my normal rhythm, And I'm slowly getting back into it. So as the weeks tick by and you keep on tuning into Tent Talks Tunes, you should see a little bit more of the regular discombobulated me instead of the overly tired, discombobulated me. So let's drink a toast of the fine, fabulous Danbury tap to discombobulation. Hear, hear. Let's see who's tuned in. We got Alan Versapellis. Hello, Alan. Hello, Adam Zisser from the great city of Hotlanta. Hello, Per from Sweden. Good to see you guys checking in. And also hello to everybody out there who is tuned in but hasn't made themselves known. Why don't you people make yourselves known? Let me know that you're here. I want to see your names and faces. Hey, Mr. John Bridges from Wilmington, North Carolina. Check this out, Bridges. I got them. They're right here. They're for you. It will be coming your way very soon. Vaughn, none of your damn business, is tuned in. Hello, Vaughn, the mysterious and enigmatic Vaughn from Parts Unknown, Weight Unknown. Amy Lynn Myers from Virginia. Hello, Amy. Good to see you. And yes, John Bridges, those are your tapes. Your tapes. Some of the many $3 cassettes that I was blowing out at the punk rock flea market and in general. I'm trying to figure this out. You know, maybe you guys can help me. Hello, Walt Wheat, my bandmate in the almighty AntiScene. We'll be talking about our doings in about a minute. And Rory. Hello, Rory. Oh, yes, an old trashy himself, Rory Plude. You're going to hear all about that Chung King can suck it. Just stay tuned, dude. And we got Callie Helmstrom from California. Callie is the guy who released a really cool album called The Wolf Within on Jeff Clayton's Long-Haired Weirdo record label. Go to antiscene.com and check it out. If you like that dark, ambient, creepy spoken word stuff with scary soundtracks, The Wolf Within by Callie Hellstrom is the album for you. Now, Rory Plude says he's got the white vinyl Chung King. Rory, do you have a genuine Chung King, or is it one of those Revelation Can Suck It 10-inch records? There's a lot of confusion about that. And there's actually a couple of very funny stories about that, which we will also get into in due time. But I want to ask you guys a question. I want to get a Tent Talks Tunes poll going on here. As you guys know, I buy and sell records for a living. Between doing that and playing in bands and having the record label, TPOS, that's how I put the food in Harry the Cat's dish. But I don't like to, I don't want to be running an infomercial here, you know. I slip in plugs and ads enough as it is, but people have responded positively to the shows where I've done nothing but sell records. When I get into the inventory that I have, the Trash American Style inventory, and start pulling out really cool records I've got for sale, people seem to like it. So what do you guys think, man? I want you, the people, to have a dictatorship of the proletariat and inform me, the fearless leader of Tent Talks Tunes. Should I do more shows like that? Should I dip into the inventory and drag out really cool, amazing punk rock, 60s, 70s, new wave, hardcore, psychedelic? Should I? Should I bring out more and offer them for sale here on Tent Talks Tunes, or should I stick more to the show and tell format? I want you guys to give me your opinions, because without your opinion, I got no show. You guys help direct me and sculpt me and mold me. John Bridges says right off the bat, open the trash vault. I take that as a very promising sign. And even if you're not watching live now, feel free to drop a comment somewhere and I will definitely read it. Yep, Adam Zisser wants to see the inventory, as they say in the UK, the inventory. I think I see where the trend is going. All right, gang, let's talk about some stuff here. Let's see what's going on. We're going to check the mailbox, and we're going to check the calendar, and then we're going to talk tunes. Not much in the mailbox this week. I don't know why. The mail comes and goes, it ebbs and flows, but since I was at the punk rock flea market hanging out with my kindred spirits, I had some people who gifted me some really cool things. Not the least of which is this really neat. I love this. This is a Ramones Live from the US Festival cassette made by my pal Sean Mosher, who is right here in Connecticut. This is like a good old-fashioned Oot Bay Egg Lay, as they say in Igpay Attenlay. A live set. Does anybody remember in the pre-YouTube days when things like this were the only way that you could hear something like the Ramones live performance at the US Festival in 1982? It was either this or a very expensive LP, and then getting into the 90s, it was a very expensive CD. But for the longest time, including my time, this was the only way you could ever hope to hear rare and obscure and unreleased live performances or studio outtakes or radio broadcasts by your favorite artists. You had to get them on some kind of physical medium, and it was usually cassette. So Sean, doing his bit to bring back that lost art form, made a Ramones Live at the US Festival cassette. Thank you, Sean. I like this thing an awful lot. And also my pal Chaim, who runs a really cool used book selling service. He recently came across an album that is absolutely near and dear to my heart. You guys who have seen Tent Talks Tunes on more than one occasion, you guys know how much I love sleazy, cheesy exploitation cash-in records. Quick knockoff versions of the hits of the day or whatever the latest musical trend is. Really cheap and cheesy versions of these songs done in a real hurry by faceless studio hacks. Man, I love that stuff. I've got crates of those albums. Some are better than others. Some are worse than others. Of course, it's the worst ones that I'm interested in. The worse, the better. And Chaim, knowing that, gifted me with a CD he made of a very obscure generic cash-in album called American Gold, which, by the sound of it, dates from the early 70s. And, you know, as is typical with these things, there's no credit, no musician credits, no real label name, no nothing. Just a whole bunch of the hits of the day played by anonymous, minimum wage studio musicians, probably in Nashville or somewhere like that, where musicians just need to get a gig somehow, and they will end up playing on albums like this. So it's pretty cool. It's not horrifically god-awful, but it's like pleasantly generic. It's just very, very generic. It's got generic vanilla white bread versions of stuff like Chain of Fools, Judy in Disguise with Glasses, Groovin', Next Plane to London. It's got some pretty bad versions of Happy Jack and Hello Goodbye by the Beatles, which you might notice in this excerpt from the back cover are they misspelled Hello Goodbye, and they also mangled Woman Woman. Women Woman. Sounds good to me. So thank you, Chaim, for that. I got minutes and minutes of listening pleasure out of this generic American Gold. Keep them coming, kids. I'm always happy to reciprocate. I'm going to make up a little something for you, Chaim, as the days tick by. And that's basically the mailbox, which is the in-person box. Now we're going to check the bulletin board / calendar as I wet my whistle a little bit. Rory has sent me some pictures. Ah, yes, Rory, you've got the Revelation Can Suck It 10-inch. Okay, definitely a big source of confusion. We'll get to that in a minute. Got some events going on this very Saturday, this upcoming Saturday. What's that date there? August 26th, I will be playing a rare solo gig at the Bridgeport Porch Fest. It's a citywide event in which people have bands and musicians play on their front porches. And you, the discriminating music lover, can walk from porch to porch, from gig to gig, and see people like me strutting their stuff. So I'm going to be going on at 3 p.m. The address is 490 Cortlandt Avenue, as in Court of Law, land, Cortlandt Avenue in Bridgeport. Just drive on down to Bridgeport, find the address, park in the street somewhere, walk on over, and I'll be playing my electric Flying V guitar. Yes, and singing songs by myself and artists who you should probably know and recognize. So yes, 490 Cortlandt Avenue, Bridgeport, this Saturday, Malcolm Tent, solo electric. I don't play a lot of solo gigs these days. I've pretty much stopped booking solo gigs, and I really don't try to do any solo tours anymore because AntiScene, who we'll be talking about in a second, AntiScene keep me plenty busy. And when I'm not doing AntiScene stuff, I've got Profanotica to keep me busy. And so the solo gigs, it's like I just don't have time. You know, if somebody offers me something, I'll probably take it. But I just simply don't have the time anymore to go out booking solo gigs. So they don't happen nearly as much as they used to. So this is a rare treat for all of you people who ever wanted to see Malcolm Tent solo electric this Saturday, the 26th, 490 Cortlandt Avenue in Bridgeport. So what else is happening? We got some things happening September 22nd and September 23rd at the Beachland Ballroom in Cleveland, Ohio. It is the, 24th, I believe, 24th annual Devo Fan Fest, the devotional, happening on my birthday weekend. Yes, it's a 2-day fun gathering of Devo fans, Devo freaks, Devo geeks. Devo fans have been doing cosplay since just about anybody except maybe the Trekkies. So, tribute bands playing, guest speakers, music, merriment, food, drink, all the good stuff, all in the company of Devo people. September 22nd, September 23rd, you know I'm going to be there for that. I will be debuting a special new release. And like I said, earlier, there's always going to be a little bit of advertisement in there somewhere, but I don't advertise anything unless I really honestly believe in it. And I believe in my label more than any other label on the face of this earth. There's a lot of great record labels out there, but TPOS, baby, it's the best. It's everything I ever wanted on a record label, including this brand new, going to be making its debut at this coming devotional LP, Devoted, a full-length, 12-inch, well, actually, it's not full-length. It's a 6-song, long-running EP. It's got a front cover. It's got a back cover. It's got a gatefold sleeve. It's got delicious, yummy blue vinyl, and I do say very classy labels. And what's on it? Well, you've got performances not only by the Spud Boys, which is the long-serving Devo tribute band at the devotional, but it's got performances by Gerald V. Casale and Bob Lewis, the 2 founding members of Devo, who got on stage for the first time in 40 years at devotional. The tapes were rolling. Now it's on vinyl. You've also got appearances by David Kendrick, long-serving drummer of Devo. And you've got an amazing, I think, the most amazing, solid 8.5 minutes of my entire life. A performance of Beautiful World by David Kendrick of Devo, Jerry Casale, founding member of Devo, Scott Orsi of the Spud Boys, and moi. Yes, I was in a 4-piece band with Devo's rhythm section for 8 minutes. And the proof of it is on vinyl, also on CD. Check it out. It's like a little tiny itty-bitty version of the LP. How cool is that? So these will be making their debut at the devotional. And it's my job to tell you about them, and I just told you about them. What else is going on? Well, the week after that, September 30th, oh, my stars and garters, you've been hearing an awful lot about it. And let me tell you guys, we don't inflate. We do not hype. We do not shill. We simply tell the truth when we say that the AntiScene 40th anniversary show coming up, September 30th, it's going to be a big one. We got a lot of stuff in our bait bucket that we're going to throw out and toss on the waters and hopefully incite a nice feeding frenzy with AntiScene fans. September 30th at the Ground Zero in Spartanburg, South Carolina. To celebrate 40 years, AntiScene is playing a top 40 set. 40, count them, 40 AntiScene songs in one marathon set, featuring many guest appearances by former members. Several past lineups will be represented. Opening acts, Sweet Georgia Brown and Joe Buck Yourself. It's going to be a gala event. Make sure to check out antiscene.com for information about hotel deals and everything you need to know. Tickets are going fast. Don't regret it. Whew, so we survived that. That's going to be a thing and a half. Then we look forward to, I believe, a weekend or two after that, October 8th, at the Counterweight Brewing Company in beautiful Cheshire, Connecticut. My pals at Red Scroll Records are promoting a big old record fair. I will be set up, selling lots and lots of cool, awesome records, tapes, CDs, and a full line of TPOS products. Products, I'm telling you. August 8th, Cheshire, Connecticut, Counterweight Brewing Company. And then after that, October 21st, the Danbury Record and CD Expo. It's a record show that I promote myself. Lots of dealers, lots of me, hopefully lots of you. October 21st, VFW Hall number 149 in Danbury, Connecticut. If you love records, tapes, and CDs and stuff, don't miss it. All right, that brings everybody up to date. What do you say we get down to the meat of the matter and let Tent talk tunes? By the way, I see that the comments are piling up. We got a lot of comments there. I'll have to address these after I sign off because I'm on a roll here. We got to flow. So here's the backstory, gang. The backstory is this. If any of you guys are almost as old as I am, you might remember a certain record store in Danbury, Connecticut. Its address was 12 Mill Plain Road. The name of it was Trash American Style. Who ran Trash American Style? I ran Trash American Style. That's why I know everything I know about Trash American Style. Now, if you entered by the front door of Trash American Style, the odds were pretty good that you were going to exit by the front door of Trash American Style. It's just kind of the way doors work. You go in one direction and out the other direction. And that's how you go into a store and out of a store. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. If you were an observant trashy, you might have rolled your eyes upward just a little bit as you were walking out. And you might have seen a great big old mosaic of records that were tacked to the wall. And that was what I called the record collector's nightmare wall. It was designed to send shivers through the ribs of serious record collectors, specifically punk rock record collectors, I being one of them. So why would anybody do that? Why would a shopkeeper do that to his customers? Why would a shopkeeper do that to himself? Because I'm the one who had to look at it more than anybody else. I would stand here behind the counter, from this perspective, standing behind the counter. Every time somebody came in the door, I'd look over there and see who it was coming in. And every time I looked over there, I saw the record collector's nightmare wall. Why? Why would I do that? Well, A, because it was funny. Sometimes you just gotta laugh at the way some incredibly rare and wonderful and quite collectible and sometimes quite expensive records end up in absolutely shite, destroyed condition. You just gotta laugh. You gotta roll your eyes and shrug your shoulders and take a look over and, yep, there they are. There's a whole bunch of them. Excuse me, and one might wonder, well, how do you get a bunch of destroyed copies of very rare records? It's one of the hazards of the business. I mean, when you do what I do, which is buy record collections and sell used records, you know, people will come in and hook you up with stuff pretty much all day, every day. Virtually every day, somebody would walk in with a collection of used records. And you just never, ever, ever knew what you were going to find in one of these boxes. You never knew whether it was going to be good, bad, or ugly. Quite often a combination of all three. 90, maybe not 90, let's say 75% was junk, you know? Old Glenn Miller records and Benny Goodman records and Dean Martin and stuff that just really, whatever audience there was for music like that are all pretty much dead now. And when they were alive, they didn't care enough to collect or save any of those records. That's just a certain demographic. There's a certain genre of music, I guess you could call them thrift store records, that just nobody cares about. Just nobody cares about. And it's not conceivable that anybody is going to care about them. It just is that way, man. Certain genres of music like big band and swing and pop vocals from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they don't have legs. They don't have people who are interested in them. They will be in thrift shops and garage sales and tag sales forever and ever and ever and ever. So, you know, that's just the reality of it. The majority of what would come in through the door was stuff like that. Of the remainder, 25% or so, you'd find some cool stuff, like good solid rock and roll, good solid jazz, little veins and smatterings of punk and hardcore, or avant-garde and experimental. And we were actually very lucky in that regard, because that was one of our main stock in trades, was the underground stuff, the weird stuff, the punk and the hardcore, and the avant-garde free jazz, and the good solid jazz, you know, like quality music, you know, really into that kind of stuff. So a lot of the collections that came in were better than average. Yes, we had our fair share of Peter Frampton records, but we also got a lot of cool stuff too. Now, the punchline to all this is that not everybody was really fastidious about taking care of their records. Boy, let me tell you, I've seen some heartbreakers for people who just did not care or know or whatever. You know, it's one thing to get a big collection of, like, say, good solid 60s and 70s rock. You know, like, let's say a bunch of Grateful Dead records, a bunch of Beatles records, and have them all trashed and destroyed and unplayable and wrecked. That's painful enough, but it's not insurmountable, because there's millions and millions and millions of Grateful Dead records out there. There's probably a billion Beatles records out there. Okay, you get a collection of that kind of stuff and it's destroyed. Not the biggest deal in the world. You know, there are boxcars full of wrecked and mangled Led Zeppelin records out there. That's just the way it is. But sometimes people would bring in collections of a somewhat higher caliber, and you'd find obliterated records that just really aren't that easy to replace. And those are the ones that went up on the wall at Trash American Style over our front door. And once the landlord chucked us out in 2007, all that stuff, along with a lot of my, like, all of my store artifacts that I wanted to keep, I put in boxes and put in storage. And I recently had the opportunity to empty out my entire basement, because I had an insulation crew coming in. In order for these guys to put the insulation in, the basement had to be clean. So I emptied out the entire basement for the first time ever and found a lot of these boxes. A lot of these boxes that had been buried, or, you know, I just didn't feel like going after them. Well, I put my hands on every single ever loving one of them, including this box right here. The box which contains the contents of the Record Collector's Nightmare Wall. And due to popular demand and popular request, I'm going to do a detailed show and tell here on Tent Talks Tunes of some of the records that ended up on the Record Collector's Nightmare Wall, and as best as I can remember, the stories behind them. I'm going to start out first with one that is not a record, and this was never on the wall, but it's something that I was reminded of when I found this box. And I'm going to reach over real quick and hit the refresh button and make sure that I'm still streaming live, because with this internet, you just never know. Okay, I'm on, I'm live, I'm great. So, let's hit the play button there. Wow, my face is frozen in a really hideous, ridiculous expression. I'm going to hit the refresh button again because I'm getting depressed looking at myself in that condition. Very bad. Okay, here we are. We're live. We're rolling. It's happening. It's great. It's here. It's now. Charlie. So yeah, I found the box, and I was reminded of one artifact that I came across that somebody traded in. Somebody had been to a tag sale in Danbury and, you know, found a box of generic mom and dad records. But for some reason, wedged into the box haphazardly and with no care whatsoever to its condition was an original Violent Children picture sleeve. No record. As you can see, the sleeve itself is pretty mangled. It's been through the ringer once or twice. But you can just imagine what the story behind this sleeve was. In fact, it's probably pretty easy to guess. Now, in case y'all don't know, Violent Children was Danbury's, I'm going to guess, second ever hardcore band. The first being No Milk on Tuesday. And Violent Children was notable because their drummer was a guy named Ray Capo. Get a shot of Ray. Look at that guy, Ray Cappo, with all that curly brown hair playing the drums. Ray Cappo, of course, later went on to form a little Connecticut band called Youth of Today, who then moved to New York and became New York hardcore band Youth of Today. Well, that's where he started out. Violent Children were a Danbury High School hardcore band, and their lyrics were all straight edge, and it's really good stuff. It's like seriously legit, really good stuff. Very classy hardcore. In fact, it's still in print to this very day on cassette. On what label? TPOS, of course. So go to Discogs, or actually it's only on Discogs. Go to Discogs and get yourself one of these if you want to hear some really genuinely excellent 1983-84 era Connecticut hardcore featuring Ray Cappo on drums. So yeah, they were like they were a high school band essentially, and they pressed 500 copies of this record. And what I heard over and over and over again from people who went to school with these guys was that their main method of distribution for the records was to just give them away to people who went to Danbury High School with these guys. Whether the kid wanted to have a record or not, they'd be like, "Here, take this. This is our record." "Oh, okay, thanks." Whatever. And so it's pretty easy to picture somebody who went to Danbury High School in 1984 having one of these forced on them, not caring about it in the slightest bit, losing the record, wrecking the sleeve, and just shoving it into a box to end up at a yard sale many, many years later. So that's how that happened. I forget who it was, but whoever it was that brought it in knew how much we love Violent Children and how historically important this record is, and how ultimately hilarious it is that there was no record and just a completely beat up, destroyed sleeve in amongst all those Glenn Miller records. Oh, man. Okay, now for some reason here, I hope you guys will bear with me. What I need to do is get back on my profile here and, as usual, just make sure I'm going live, because my feed is frozen on my monitor and I have no way of actually seeing if you guys are still seeing me. The picture's frozen and the comments have stopped coming in. So, and it's happened before where I have thought that I've been streaming, but I wasn't. Okay, Callie from California says I'm still live. Okay, if I'm live in California, I'm live elsewhere. So that means, okay, Adam says he sees me. Okay, I am live in California, I am live in Georgia, therefore I am alive. So that means everybody did hear the story of the Violent Children picture sleeve, which has been mangled without a record. Never made it to the record collector's nightmare wall, but it would have. It would have. All right, what else have we got in here? We got all kinds of stuff. All kinds of great records and things that were on our wall. I'm just going to grab them out and start looking through them. See, how do these things get... Oh, here's one. This is pretty funny. This might not be the single rarest record in the world. This is a Misfits 7-inch. It was not an original Misfits Plan 9 7-inch, but it was a boot 7-inch, Spook City, USA. A lot of these are still actually very collectible and desirable. This one came out in the 90s at some time, so it's been out of print forever. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's warped to hell. Completely warped beyond any semblance of playability. Hopefully the camera can... Yep, there, you can kind of see the warp there. Yep. Whether you like the Misfits or not, you got to admit their stuff is extremely collectible, even the boots. And this one is so warped that it's beyond redemption. So it ended up on the record collector's nightmare wall. What else have we got here? This is pretty cool. Oh yeah, this is really great. This is a from Spain, a promotional only white label 45 of Depeche Mode. Sometimes I Wish I Was Dead. Great song. I think one of Vince Clarke's last contributions to Depeche Mode. And the B-side is entitled Photographic, the demo version. But yes, authentic white label promo from Spain. Also has a nasty, nasty pinch warp in it. Maybe you guys can see the warp. You can kind of see it there. Warped all to hell. It might be playable. I really don't know. It's horrible because it's otherwise in mint condition. The vinyl looks like it never was played. It looks like somebody left it out in the car for a while before they got around to playing it. I've done that myself. I remember once I was at a tag sale in New York State, and I found a really awesome pile of old Hank Williams 78s, original Hank Williams 78s on the yellow MGM label. They're not particularly rare, but they're really, really cool. And at the time, I didn't know that 78s would warp the same way that regular vinyl LPs and 7-inchers would warp. I figured since they were made out of shellac that they wouldn't warp. So I didn't really think anything about just taking these records and putting them in the back seat of my car and forgetting about them for a while. Imagine my surprise when I went into my car a few days later and learned the hard way that, yes, a stack of really cool, awesome Hank Williams 78 RPM original records from the 50s will definitely warp. They will definitely die. They will definitely be rendered unplayable if you leave them in a hot car. So let my pain spare you some pain, and heed my warning. Don't leave records of any sort in a hot car. Don't do it with your pets. Don't do it with your kids. Don't do it with your records, because they will end up like the two I just showed you and maybe a few more I'm going to show you. Now here's one. I don't even know how this happened, but this is an original 100% OG. Let's see if we can get you to see this OG red vinyl on the Bitter Boy label, 7-inch single. That's the back label. That's the front label of the G.G. Allin and Disappointments Inside Outside 7-inch. Really cool record. The grooves are mastered so that it plays from the inside to the outside. My pal Kurt Tuckerman put this out many, many years ago on his Bitter Boy label. I believe he only pressed 1,000 of them. And so when somebody traded in their punk rock record collection and this was in there, I was very happy. But imagine my chagrin when I pulled the record out of the sleeve, and I'm going to do an approximation of what it looked like, okay? Let's pretend this is a record sleeve here. That's a record sleeve, right? I pulled the record out of the sleeve, and I said, ooh, yep, red vinyl looks pretty good. Oh, it's in really good shape. So far, so good. Yep, I think I'm going to give this guy a few dollars for it, and oh... yeah, well, maybe I'm not going to give him anything for it because it's less than a whole record. It's less than one complete record. It's kind of had it. So yes, it's a copy of G.G. Allin Inside Outside. It was released during his lifetime in an edition of 1,000 on red vinyl, and it is definitely more than it was supposed to be cracked up to be. Tragic. That ended up on the record collector's nightmare wall. The good news is that I have recently established contact with Mr. Kurt Tuckerman. Kurt, if you're watching, hello. And I've also established a few years ago contact with the Disappointments. And we are working on a comprehensive issue/reissue of all of the good quality recordings made by G.G. Allin and the Disappointments, including a reissue of this 7-inch. And you guys have my word of honor that when I press it, none of them will come out of the box looking like this. They will not. What you do with it once you get it is up to you, but all the records I sell when they're fresh from the pressing plant are intact. Excuse me, in one piece. One piece, I promise. Here's another one. Ooh, I see the... oh, now this... You guys know, I said it before, and I'll say it again after I quench my thirst a bit here. When I'm not busy doing AntiScene I'm busy doing Profanotica. Profanotica are arguably America's first ever black metal band. I'm pretty sure they released the very, very first ever US black metal record, which was called Weeping in Heaven. Profanotica are from Brewster, New York, which is the next town over from Danbury, Connecticut. The Connecticut state line divides the two towns. So when this record first came out, obviously we were the local record store to sell it. So we sold a pretty fair number of them. And as happens a lot, if you sell a bunch of records, eventually some will come back to you. So a copy of Weeping in Heaven by Profanotica did indeed come back in a collection. I pulled the record out of the sleeve and I saw what I do believe is the single worst warp. Can you guys see that? Can you see the wavy texture of that vinyl? I don't even know how you warp a record that badly. It takes a lot of work to warp a record that badly. Now, you guys may or may not know, but there are record flatteners out there. You can get these devices that'll press a record flat again and make it playable. This, I think, is beyond all hope. I don't think there's been a record flattener made or ever will be made that will save this copy of Weeping in Heaven by Profanotica. This thing is done. Miranda Pixley said an oven. Probably someone tried to bake it, you know? They heard that you can bake a tape and save it. They tried to bake this record and save it. No go. Goodbye, Weeping in Heaven. Yeah, this kind of ties in with what I was saying earlier about how there's a lot of common records out there. This one's kind of common. Later day, Johnny Cash, 7-inch single on Sun. It's next in line, backed with Don't Make Me Go. As is so typical for so many of these original Sun records by Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis and Carl Perkins, it's just been played literally to death. Just played to death and then left out in the dust and it's covered in spooge. I might, maybe I'll try to save this one. This might actually be salvageable. I've learned some pretty good record cleaning techniques in my years. And this one might actually, I might be able to breathe some life into this one. Instead of just tossing it randomly on the pile of rubble over there, I'm going to gently place it over here in my work pile. And see if I can't resurrect that beautiful original Sun, Johnny Cash 45. Let's see, what else is going to break people's hearts? What is this? Oh, okay, well here's something for... Oh, boy. We're going to save a couple of these for last because they're really good. All you Connecticut hardcore fans out there, 90s hardcore fans, y'all remember a band called Push Button Warfare? First pressing of their record on Stillborn Records, number 9 on clear vinyl. I got one. Yes, indeed, I got one. And it's been cracked in half. Probably some Connecticut hardcore dude in a fit of pique, or maybe got really excited, just whipped it off the turntable and hurled it across the room, and that's why we have approximately 60% of a push-button warfare record and not 100% of a push-button warfare record. That's the way it goes in Connecticut, man. Connecticut is not soft. Here's another one for you. Great record from 84, I believe. Pillsbury Hardcore. Yes, Pillsbury Hardcore 7-inch single on transparent yellow vinyl. You can't really see it, but I'm going to accentuate the negative here. It's got the weirdest crack I've ever seen. It's cracked all the way around the rim of the label and into the vinyl. So normally a Pillsbury Hardcore record, yeah, there you go, you can see the crack there. Normally a Pillsbury Hardcore record is pretty collectible, but not this one. That one's had it. Oh, hey, look! I don't know why we have this trend going on here, but hey guys, look, it's another push-button warfare record, and it's also only about 60% of the record that it used to be. And I gotta admit, I don't know what the story is behind that. I don't know why I have a clear one and a blue one that are cracked almost identically. This is very odd. But they were on the Record Collector's Nightmare wall. I wonder if I even got these from Jamie Hatebreed himself. I might have. Oh, any AntiScene fans out there? Let me see. Let me hear an amen. Let me see some thumbs up. Let me see some hearts. Let me see some muscles. Let me see some fists. Let me see some teary emojis. Any AntiScene fans out there? Well, let me tell you, speaking as AntiScene's bass player, and a guy who released one of their early records on TPOS, it pained me greatly when somebody traded in this original copy of the AntiScene WXCI broadcast 7-inch, aka AntiScene Conquers the North, just beat. You can see the gouge in it. You can see the gouge in it. It's got some more gouges and chunks taken out of it on the vinyl. It might still be playable, but I wouldn't necessarily bet on it. You can't really see the damage on the grooves in this thing. Somebody just did not take care of this thing, and they really should have. They really should have They really should have took better care of this thing. John Coletti, a.k.a. Sex Bomb, are you the one who traded this in? Was this you? John Coletti, are you responsible for this? Just asking. Asking for a friend. Frumpies. The Frumpies. Great girl, riot girl sort of proto-band. Really furious, pissed off, angry, female-fronted punk rock / hardcore. Well, here's another one that's got only 60% of it intact. Even if you thought you could try to play this, you wouldn't get much music out of it. So there's a nice original collectible Frumpies 45, which is less than what it used to be. John Coletti denies that he supplied the damaged AntiScene record, but he wishes he had. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's see. What do we got here that's also going to break somebody's heart? Oh, this will break somebody's heart. This breaks my heart. Jesus Louises. Gorilla Biscuits, Revelation number 4. We all know that it was the first, I believe, 21 Revelation releases that are just like the bedrock of straight edge hardcore. Well, Gorilla Biscuits number 4 was one of the cornerstones of that foundation, and it went through a number of pressings. This is not an original first pressing. This is a later pressing, I believe, from the early 90s. Experts out there can tell me which pressing of Gorilla Biscuits this is, but it's before they all started getting reissued like nuts. And yeah, it is also snapped almost completely in half. And if you can see, it's also got this incredible dent in the edge of it. The dent alone would have rendered it basically unplayable. So this is like a real awesome perfecta of how to absolutely annihilate a rare collectible record. This record will sell for approximately $0. I don't want to think about it. So I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to chuggle right along here, kids. Let's see. What else other kind of great unplayable records we have here that are all screwed up? Here's something on Bacteria Sour. Tokuhara? Pusshead's record label. Bacteria Sour. Tokuhara, I believe, is the name of the band. Bacteria Sour number 16. You can't really see it, but it's got some deep scratches. Maybe you can see. Yeah, you can see them. You can see it's got a couple really deep scratches in it. I'm sure it might still be playable, but it ain't mint. It qualifies as a record collector's nightmare. Here's a good one for you on the Gasatanka record label. Tangled Up by the Necros. It's not IQ 32, thank God. It's not Sex Drive, thank God, twice. But it is Tangled Up, and it is a good record on the original Gasatanka label. And it's got a really wicked pinch warp. Like with so many of these things, I don't know if you can actually see it, but it's like somebody took a pair of crimpers and went on the edge. So much for that one. Here's a punk rock classic, The Adverts. Everybody knows The Adverts in Gary Gilmore's Eyes. Can I get a thumbs up for the all-time 77 classic, Gary Gilmore's Eyes by The Adverts? If you like your original punk rock, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Classic picture sleeve, great tune. It was never released in the US. What a great record. And what a darn shame that this original copy of Gary Gilmore's Eyes ended up like that. I don't need to do any special effects or weird angles for you to see what happened to that one. See, this is great, though, because this makes all the surviving copies of Gary Gilmore's Eyes that much rarer. Because you've got one that looks like this. Into the heap it goes. These records hung on the wall of Trash American Style over our front door for years. Okay, now here is another one. It's not Rev, but it is New Age Records. It's not Gorilla Biscuits, but it is Mouthpiece. A fine record. And it is warped. Pretty much beyond playability. Hope you guys can see that. Totally warped. Yeah, the light kind of... Yeah, there you go. You can see the ripples on the vinyl in the light there. Boy. This is a good one. I don't know who or why this happened, but I just want to say right off the bat that this one was seen in person by Jamie Hatebreed himself, and he thought it was very funny, and we all thought it was very funny, so we had no problem hanging this on the Record Collector's Nightmare wall. Somebody had a copy of the Hatebreed Neglect split 7-inch single. It not only came in warped, you can see the warp on it. Not only did it come in warped, but whoever warped it took the trouble to customize the label to make it say, "Butt Breed Sucks." And to commemorate this fine piece of art, when I hung it on the Record Collector's Nightmare wall, instead of sticking the tack through the hole like it did on all the others, I simply took the tack and stuck it right through the record. So, there's that one. Officially endorsed by members of Hatebreed. So you gotta love it. Gotta love it. Alright, we had some LPs too. We had some really good LPs that were wrecked. See, this would happen a lot because, you know, LPs, they'd get played to death, they'd get warped. Here's an original Underdog Vanishing Point, which has got another one of those wicked pinch warps on the edge. Same deal. I don't know if you guys can make it out, but on this far edge here, it's got an incredible pinch warp, which means you can play, like, you can play pretty much everything but the first song of the side, but it completely tanks the collectible value of it. You know, Agnostic Front, Liberty and Justice 4. I don't know why this one's here. It's not even in that bad condition. Maybe it just didn't have a cover. Oh no, it's got a warp. It's got a hell of a warp. It's totally drooping on one side. See, these would be great records. Nowadays, people can make potato chip bowls out of these things. I should do that. I should make potato chip bowls out of these fabulous, rare, collectible records that no one's ever going to be able to play. Rollins Band, Lifetime, first pressing with a warp. Here we go. Another AntiScene record, Eat More Possum, original pressing on TPOS, which somebody, as you can see, played, if not to death, then just about into a damn coma. It's a comatose pressing. I hope they got enjoyment out of it, because they sure wrecked it. What else? Here's an original big black record of some sort that's all unplayable. Murphy's Law, first album. This was a radio station copy. Little known fact is that the black vinyl pressing of the first Murphy's Law is actually more rare than the green vinyl pressing. There was a lot more of the green vinyl than the black vinyl. So here's a black vinyl one. It was sent to a radio station. What radio station is it? You can't really see. Oh, WNHU, the radio station I used to DJ at. Well, WNHU had their promo copy of the first Murphy's Law album on rare black vinyl. And not only did they write all over the label with the station identification markers, but they played it to death. They destroyed it. Oh, man, we got a few more here. This is kind of fun, actually. I'm sort of enjoying this. Whoa, all right. Here's another one. This strikes near and dear to my heart. You're not gonna fall for this trick again. but just because the effect is so dramatic, how about this nice blue thumb pressing of Captain Beefheart? Strictly Personal. My favorite Captain Beefheart record. I think it's my favorite. It's one of my favorites. It's my top 2 for sure. Captain Beefheart and his magic band, Strictly Personal. But oh, look at that. Snapped almost in 2. Oh, man. Ooh, look at that beautiful blue thumb label and that absolutely unplayable record. Why do they do it? Why do they do it? I have no idea. They have no idea. Whoever they are. Oh, this is a favorite of mine. This one, I know exactly what happened to this one. This is a real good one. This is the very rare alternative tentacles pressing of Dead Kennedy's California Uber Alles backed with Man with the Dogs. Once again, this was done on 2 different labels. There was Optional Records and Alternative Tentacle Records. The first pressing was Alternative Tentacles. And later it was issued on Optional. And Optional is the common one. The original on Alternative Tentacles is the rare one. And this one I got because my good friend Todd Jenkins, who's in Florida right now and might even be watching. Hey, Todd. Todd actually mailed this to me when Trash American Style first opened. And by the time it got from Florida to my doorstep, it looked like this. So Todd, thanks for trying. I really do appreciate it. At that time, in those days, I probably would have gotten an easy $10 for it. But the U.S. Postal Service was not in the mood to cooperate with my get-rich-quick scheme that day. So they put me in my place and completely obliterated this great first pressing Alternative Tentacles California Uber Alles. Got a story behind this one. Yeah, here's a story. How about Revelation Records number 1? Revelation Records number 1. The one that started it all, kids. Warzone. Can I get an amen from Warzone? This is not a first pressing of Warzone, but it is still a bona fide original Revelation pressing from the late 80s, maybe early 90s. And we can see that it also has a horrific pinch warp, and it looks more like a potato chip than a record. But that's the version of it right there. And once again, I felt the obligation to put the tack through the vinyl just to rub salt in the wound. My funny story about Warzone first pressings is sometime in the late 80s, 89, maybe 90. Don't remember exactly. But Jordan Cooper, the guy who was the co-founder of Revelation Records along with Ray Capo, Jordan Cooper and I took a road trip down to Florida. And our mission was to try to distribute some of the early Revelation releases. So we had boxes of Revelation records. We had a whole bunch of Warzones. And I am 99.5% sure they were first pressings with the light blue label. First pressing Warzones, Gorilla Biscuits, Sick of It All. We had Side by Side, No for an Answer. And the New York Hardcore The Way It Is compilation had just come out. So we had boxes of records in my car, and we drove from Connecticut to Florida and back, hitting every record store along the way, trying to sell the records directly to the record stores. And what I remember is that really nobody was interested. It was a tough sell. Like, the only people who bought any sort of quantity on them were my friend George at Vinyl Ink Records in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I think that's about it, actually. Our final stop was Open Books and Records in North Miami Beach, Florida. And I'm pretty sure that Leslie did buy some. But by and large, nobody was really that interested. We came home with far more records, all Revelation early pressings. We came back with far more records than we were hoping. But one thing I do remember specifically is that for some reason it was brought to our attention that some of the Revelation number 1s, the Warzone records, the first pressings, for some reason there was a problem with warpage on some of them. I guess Jordan got some complaints. So I will never forget that as we were driving on 95 North back to Connecticut, Jordan had this huge box of Warzone singles, first pressings, mind you, and he was checking every one of them for warps. And sure enough, he would occasionally find one that was warped, and so he made like this stack of warped Warzone records, which later in the trip when we were kind of bored, we just started throwing out the window. We were just winging them out the side windows up in the air, and I was throwing them out the windows when I was driving. And I was amazed at how high these things would sail in the air. They would go up in the air for what, like, seemed hundreds of feet. So we were just whipping these Warzone first pressings out the window because we were bored. And I'd like to think that to this day, somewhere between here and Florida, maybe in Virginia or North Carolina, somewhere there are still shards and pieces and remnants of all these Revelation number 1s in the medians of 95 North. It's a pleasant thought. It's a pleasing thought. Let's see. Adam Zister from Atlanta wants to know, have I ever been to Wax and Facts or Wuxtree? Of course. Dude, Wax and Facts? That's a destination. Never made it to Wonderland. Criminal Records is a favorite stop of mine in Atlanta, too. I like Criminal a lot. Hey, speaking of which, check it out, man. There you go. A Warzone first pressing with the blue label. Yep, it's pretty destroyed. Can you guys see the condition of that vinyl? Revelation number 1. This is the exact type of Revelation number 1 that we were throwing out the window on our trip in a futile effort to try to get some record stores to buy the damn things. The story would be quite different now. This one might even be playable. I don't know. It's not in very good shape. That's all I know. Here's a nice one. Schism. Schiz number 2. Judge. New York Crew. Second pressing, yellow label. Same deal. Look at the condition of that vinyl. That's disgraceful. That is absolutely disgraceful. But it is what it is, man. Not every hardcore kid out there was a collector. Some of them liked to play their records until they were gone. Even the label on this one's got a lot of wear on it. You can see that. Oh, and it's cracked, too. Check it out. Big old crack in that sumbitch. Look, it's like it's talking to you. Can't get a buck for that one. And we got some other things here. And we just had some real, like, you know, horrible, hideous abominations on the wall. Terrible records that were just lousy. Here's one warning you about the wonders of the dangers of a worn-out toothbrush. Here's one of those cheesy generic cash-in records I love so much. Does that logo look familiar to anybody? Does that record company logo ring a bell to any observant watchers of Tent Talks tunes? Just asking. Let's see, we got a few more, and I'm going to show you the main event in a minute here. The one that everybody's been talking about. Everybody wants to know. Oh, here's a good one. Crippled Youth. All you straight edge kids are going to be weeping in your Jolt soda, your Jolt Cola when you see this one. None of these are interesting. All right, here's the warm-up to the main event. Crippled Youth, join the fight. Clear vinyl. You see it? You see it? Cracked completely in half. Completely, utterly in half. Maybe you can super glue it together, but I kind of doubt it. Now this one was my personal favorite. This was my favorite record on the Record Collector's Nightmare wall. And it always kind of grieved me that this record didn't get more discussion than it did. I thought for sure that people would be pestering me to death about this one, but honestly, the entire time that this record was up on the Nightmare wall, I only got one person ever grill me about it. I think maybe it's because a lot of people knew what it was, but, you know, don't ask, don't tell was probably in effect. It's kind of like knowing who the residents are. It's more fun to not tell than it is to tell. But for me, the centerpiece of the Record Collector's Nightmare wall was always this wrecked, destroyed copy of this record. You can see the labels. It says, Chung King Can Suck It by Judge, Revelation number -1. Now, if you people want to know anything about this record, all you got to do is look it up. If you don't know anything about this record, all I'm going to say is that if you are a collector of this type of stuff, Chung King Can Suck It is the one. Chung King Can Suck It is the one. The toppermost of the poppermost. The be-all, the end-all. The bomb. This is the one that everybody wants. And I had this wrecked, destroyed copy on the Record Collector's Nightmare wall forever. But nobody ever called me out on it. Nobody said, hey man, why is it on yellow vinyl? When everybody knows that Chung King was on white vinyl. How come? No one ever asked me that. I was very disappointed by that because I would have come clean. I'm that kind of guy. I would have told you everything about this record if anybody had asked. Does anybody want to know what's up with a Chung King Can Suck It on yellow vinyl? Because if anybody expresses interest in knowing, I'll tell you. But if nobody expresses interest, I just won't say anything. I'll sit back here and wait for the results to roll in. I'm going to pretend I'm Dr. Gene Scott. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing until I see some results. Dr. Gene Scott would be smoking a big cigar right now. I don't smoke, I'm straight edge. Let's see, we got some comments here. Let's see, please illuminate us. Is a toilet involved? Check your messages. You showed, now tell. All right, Pear from Sweden really threw the gauntlet down. Interested, do tell. Yes, Miranda's afraid. Adam wants to know who is Chung King. All right. Okay. You, the people, have spoken. Now, Adam, okay, so I guess I should not assume that everybody knows what this is. So here's just a little bit of a background, okay? Revelation Records, right? Probably the greatest, at least originally back in the day, straight edge label that ever existed. Had all the key artists on it. When they were going to release an album, a full-length album by Judge, the original recordings of the album were deemed unsuitable. And this was after Revelation had already spent a lot of money on the studio time and everything. So rather than just take the tapes and forget about them, Revelation pressed a full-length 12-inch vinyl LP. They made 110 copies of it on white vinyl, and they called it Chung King Can Suck It. And the cover was silk-screened. Each one was hand-stamped with a number, except for the last 10 that had hand-numbered because they made 110, not 100, blah, blah, blah. Typical Revelation stuff. They made 100 of these things, and they gave them away. They didn't sell them. They gave them to the band. They gave them to label employees. They gave them to friends of Revelation, myself being one of them, just saying. And they later on, in later years, auctioned a bunch off and donated the proceeds to charity. Revelation didn't make a nickel off of this thing. And, you know, Judge later on went in and re-recorded the entire album and called it Bringing It Down, which we know is a classic of the New York hardcore straight edge genre. But the original aborted version was not even released. It was pressed on vinyl and distributed very low key as Chung King Can Suck It. So, that's the backstory. At one time, I owned 4 of them. Can you imagine that? I had 4% of the entire pressing of Chung King Can Suck It. There's a picture somewhere of me holding all 4 of them. I'll see if I can dig that one up. Record collector geeks like myself love that kind of stuff. So anyway, 110 made on white vinyl, blue and white labels. So what the hell is this one on yellow? What is it? Well, like I said, guys, I always come clean when pressed. This is the front of the Judge Chung King Can Suck It on yellow vinyl. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. This is tough. This is very hard. It's really tough to shatter people's hopes and dreams, and it's tough to debunk mythology. It's tough. It's really tough. I'm going to try again, okay? Judge Chung King Can Suck It yellow vinyl. That's the front. And that's the back. There was only one person ever back in the day who asked me the story, and I told them all about it. But no one's actually seen how this thing was constructed. Yes, what you have here is quite possibly the worst, most non-collectible piece of garbage record ever. You heard what I said earlier about Glenn Miller? Well, this isn't even Glenn Miller. This is a generic tribute to Glenn Miller. It's a bunch of faceless studio hacks playing music by a guy that you can't sell the records of anyway. And not only that, it's one of those Taiwanese pressings knocked off of... Actually, I'll take it back. This one's not Taiwanese. Take it back. It looks like one of those Taiwanese records, but it's not. It's just on the American generic Mayfair label. So it's a cheap knockoff of music that nobody buys anyway. So that's what the disc is. But I will tell you this, before you guys hang up in disgust. See, now Dennis wants to know, did I just print my own sticker? Here's the punchline. The label that says Judge Chung King Can Suck It. I'm here to tell you right now, guys, that is a real label. That is a legit Revelation label for Chung King Can Suck It. I simply took one of the original labels and glued it to this cheesy piece of junk record. And you might say, Malcolm Tent, you old creep, how did you get yourself a Chung King label that wasn't attached to a record? How did this happen? What's up with that? Well, I'll tell you. Back in the day, I hate using that term, but I'll just say it right now. Back in the day, before Revelation moved to California, they were based in New Haven. And that's part of the legendary aspect of collecting Revelation records, is to get the ones that have the original New Haven address on them. When Revelation was based in New Haven, it was a cinch for me to just drive down there to Rev HQ whenever I needed new Revelation records with some cash and buy a few boxes of records and bring them back to Danbury, where I'd have them at my store. It was a really great way of doing business, cash and carry. So every time I went down there to visit Revelation, they always just had stuff laying all over the place. You know, all just like the makings of records, like sleeves and vinyl and inserts and metal parts. And when I was down there one time visiting, I noticed a whole bunch of these labels, unused labels for Chung King Can Suck It, just kind of scattered around sitting on Jordan Cooper's desk. I said, dude, what's up with that? He said, oh, well, you know, we only pressed 110 records, but we had to order 1,000 labels because they only print labels in sets of 1,000. So I've got all these labels left over, and I use them for note paper. And sure enough, over the years, I had gotten plenty of notes from Jordan Cooper written on the backs of leftover Revelation Records labels. So what he was saying was absolutely consistent with my experience. I said, dude, can I have a few of those? He said, yeah, sure, take as many as you want. So I grabbed a short stack of Chung King and Suckit original labels that Jordan was using for note paper anyway, and just brought them back to Connecticut. And I figured, well, you got to do something with them. So one of the things I did with one of those labels was to create this little confection that only one person ever asked me about back in the day, and now the entire internet is learning the backstory of. So yes, real label, genuine, authentic Revelation printed paper label, cheesy, hideous, can't even give it away, tribute to Glenn Miller vinyl. And just to make it even more wonderful, I did my best to mutilate the vinyl by scratching it with a pencil and gouging it. And, you know, I took a screwdriver and put some divots in it just to make sure that everybody knew that this thing was absolutely not playable. So there you go, guys. The story of what I thought was the crown jewel of the record collector's nightmare wall. A real Chung King and Suckit label affixed lovingly with Elmer's glue to the worst piece of garbage record you could possibly imagine. And there it sits in the pile of rubble along with all the rest of them. That was pretty good. Good therapy. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It's always fun to spill my guts like this, talking about the good old days of yore with Trash American Style. I would like to bring your attention to the current day. I've got the brand new Murder Junkies Live 2003 CD out. It features Jeff Clayton on vocals. This is the only documented evidence to be commercially released of this lineup of the Murder Junkies, featuring old JC himself. There are only 100 copies of the first printing made. 100. Each one hand-numbered by Jeff Clayton himself. Nice gatefold sleeve. Liner notes. Photos, the works. Only 100 made. If you want one, talk to me directly or look it up on my Discogs store. And that is the last commercial message of this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Thanks, guys, for tuning in and listening to my gassy old tales and sort of weeping quietly internally as we look at this cracked in half copy of Crippled Youth Join the Fight. Record collecting might be nightmarish, but it is fun. I do hope to be back in about 166 hours' time. Until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.